We saved the best for last. We got a great panel of investors. And I'll try and keep this short so that y'all can come up and pitch them on all your deals after we're done. I am talking to a fine group of esteemed fellows. I've got, or reprobates, I'm not sure which. I'm gonna go with esteemed fellows. Ken Woody is right here from Innova. I've got Mark Montgomery from Flow Thinkery. Is it FLO or Flow?
FLO.
FLO Thinkery. What does that stand for?
Nothing.
Very cryptic. That's
You're
very
right.
cryptic.
We'll get there.
David Belitz from the Chattanooga Renaissance Fund. And last, but certainly not least, Ben Brown from SwiftWing. Come on in.
Thank you.
I won't bite much. So, gentlemen, you got a lot of entrepreneurs in the audience. I'm just going to take this one at a time. We'll go down the road a little bit. Keep your answers brief, though. What are y'all looking for right now in an investment? What do you need to see? And we'll just start here, and we'll move right down.
Team and traction.
Team and traction.
Pretty cut and dry.
Do you need revenue before you'll invest?
No, not necessarily.
Just traction. Sir?
We will always invest before we see revenues, so we look for an experienced team that's got a history of execution. We like to see a big market, so we have some opportunity for room to grow. We like to see unique technology, or at least a new twist in the technology. If it's not a product, it's rather a service. And then finally, we like to see that they've got a decent understanding of the plan on how we're going to fund this thing. We could be funding, $50,000 up to $500,000 to $1 million. It doesn't make a difference as long as they've got a good plan and all the rest of it.
I look for unicorns who are unstoppable in big markets with lots of M&A activity.
Okay, so what is not a platitude that you look for in a company?
I look for team. I mean, it's always a bet on the guy or the girl.
So is the team like the engineer from Knoxville, from like U of T? Is it?
No, you've got to. I mean, to me, you've got to have. At the end of the day, businesses are driven by sales. Someone's got to sell the product. Someone's got to make the product, and they're generally not the same guy.
Yeah.
Or girl.
David.
All right, we not surprisingly team first. It's just where we all start.
I'm shocked.
Yeah. So that's where we start. Since we're an angel fund, I'll change it up on what everybody else said a little bit. We always look for one of our partners who has knowledge of the space that they're in and can be our kind of mentor placed with that company to take them forward. So if we don't have someone in our LP group that can be a mentor for that company, we'll pass on it. Just because of that.
I was talking a little bit earlier today, and y'all missed it. It was brilliant. 5 minutes of pure joy.
Yeah, I heard it was brilliant.
But I was talking about earlier the idea that every ecosystem needs a big exit. Well, I might not have said this, but every ecosystem seems to need a big exit to really develop. What is the big exit now? Not necessarily in y'all's portfolio. In fact, let's be generous and share. What is Tennessee's big exit?
Great question.
I've stumped the panel.
Tennessee is known for, in Nashville, if you kind of break it down to the 3 states of Tennessee, Nashville is healthcare services, and kind of healthcare IT in a remote corollary.
Change Healthcare just sold for $125 million this week.
Yeah.
$25 million.
125.
$125 million.
Yep. And we just had a 90.
Had a 90.
Was there was a $90 million?
There was a $90 million one too.
What was Vanguard sold for?
I don't know. She called me on it last night. I'm not sure.
I mean, there's a lot of money being made in healthcare in Nashville.
Okay.
Tons.
So I think if you look at it, West Tennessee has been logistics, transportation, hotels, and medical. And then East Tennessee tends to be a little more on the service and more of a base industry, with the exception of Scripps and those folks. But I think what you're going to see, my guess is it'll be a technology play, whether it comes out of Nashville and the healthcare folks there, whether it comes out of an Oak Ridge or a UT and builds up. It's going to be something on the technology side that will spin out and be sold for a lot.
So the issue, I think, becomes with a deep technology play, one of the hardware plays, or if you're working with biofuels or biomass or some of these other things where you're dealing with real physical products, there's always sort of either a limit or it shoots the moon.
Right.
But those things take a decade, right? Those are not 5-year flip, 7-year flip software investments. Do you see any, and when an ecosystem sort of really takes off, look at Chicago and like what happened there with Groupon or things like that, it's really the software play that sort of makes the rain happen, and then everything else can grow up around it, or it seems that way. I mean, Silicon Valley is a separate story, starting with semiconductors, and I mean, that's a whole different business, right? But when you look in the software play, is there any company that's developed enough mass or traction? And if not, why not?
Well, so there's a software company. It's actually entertainment focused in a way. In Nashville, was Rivals.com bought by Yahoo for $100 million. Basically waited out their non-compete, and if you know the guy that runs that company, he was literally waiting at the door to open the door to the new office. They're back in with 24/7 sports, and they just bought a huge platform around comic books. So they've got an underpinning technology that they're reallocating those resources against multiple entertainment plays. That could be a $500 million company.
In Chattanooga, we had Access America, which technically is a logistics company, but it was built on infrastructure that was software. It was a multi-$100 million exit. It's already spawned a whole group of other software-related companies around it, and so it's happening. It's just pockets.
Right.
That graphene shit's really cool.
That graphene shit is really cool.
We were talking backstage, that could be the one that kind of puts Tennessee in the map and goes forward. I mean,
Well, look, I think Local Motors is another one
I
that's
think
going to do
3D
really
printing, 3D
Yeah.
printing is a fantastic new concept, and I think it could do a great job of it.
So is part of the problem myopia then? Are people not thinking big enough out here? Or do you get these guys who are thinking pretty big, but these are like 1 or 2 guys? Do you want more people to be like, I have this ridiculous idea. Would you invest in a ridiculous idea?
Sure.
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
All right.
Probably
part
not.
of
I like your honesty. I like your honesty.
What I think is good, and I give credit to, David mentioned Access America, company in Chattanooga that spawned a new group, Lamppost Group. They've then supported, launched some startups within there, and the thing that they've been really good at is recognizing there's only so far capital in this region will go. And they've built nice bridges out to the West Coast, so they take the company as far as they can. They've got 2 of their companies. One went through Y Combinator and got funding from Google Ventures, a few others on the West Coast. Another one just raised $6 million from Binary
Bellhops
Capital
campus.
and somebody else out there. So
Yeah.
there's the recognition that, we can probably only take a really big idea here so far. But I think people are starting to do a good job of build bridges to the markets where they can carry it forward. And hopefully, people in those markets will then start to take an interest in this region because they see there are some really cool companies here.
I also think that honestly, you're going to see over the course of the next umpteen years a different level of market makers moving to this market. I think Nashville gets a lot of that credit, mostly because we have less dumbass legislators in our general vicinity.
Right.
Right. So we don't end up on the front page of the New York Times with some wacko statement that bombs us into the intellectual Stone Age as frequently as maybe West Tennessee, no offense. And
I thought you were going to talk about Louisiana.
No,
and then I was going to get angry.
Louisiana too,
Right.
right? But the kind of people that you're seeing enter the market, I don't know about you guys in Chattanooga, but the level of talent that we're seeing in Nashville is light years different than it was even a year ago.
I agree
And
with
so
that.
I think, inevitably, we all talked about team being the core. Doesn't take but a couple of guys or girls to show up in a market, and all of a sudden everybody turns around and there's a big boy in the room. So I think that's a huge piece to the puzzle.
But I do think, John, that something that Ben brought up is very important. You said it earlier. You really need a home run. You need something big. I mean, one example is one of the first investments we did was a technology that came out of UT that was a strep throat vaccine. Now that's global application, but there's no way that I can invest $100 million to take it to market. So you have to find partners. We end up finding partners in Canada that are doing some of the development. So I think we're going to continue to do better jobs long term at attracting people to the state, seeing the things that are going on, and seeing the technology that we're starting to invest in early.
How can you circumvent sort of the VC community in the Valley or in New York and go to strategic partners? Is that a better avenue for capital, do y'all think?
It's just another avenue.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a better avenue. It's just another avenue.
In a lot of ways, that's easier though, because We've found that the strategics are a lot of times more receptive than other VCs.
Well, especially in health. I mean, in the
healthcare,
healthcare
for
industry,
sure.
I mean, the entire ecosystem is sort of built on y'all investing and then taking it over and running.
That's exactly right.
But when you look at something like a tech play, or one of these crazy ass hardware plays like graphene, or I'm sorry, I'm getting vulgar.
Oh, you're not even getting started.
I've not even begun to fight. When you look at one of those types of plays, I mean, Jay was talking about it earlier. He couldn't raise venture capital, right? Like, he literally could not raise venture capital. So in some ways, that strategic community should become maybe more of an option, or not really? I mean, are they more receptive than the VCs in the Valley or in New York?
I mean, my view is that great deals always find money.
Right.
I mean, I don't, and
Platitude.
it doesn't really matter where it comes from.
Right.
I mean, ideally, which to me, the ideal is to get money that's got other stuff that comes with it.
Right.
Rolodex, relationships, product knowledge, go to markets. I mean, other stuff to me is the hard stuff.
Right.
The money is easy if the deal's right.
How much of y'all's business is about now building those bridges to these communities in the Valley, in New York, in Boston, in Texas?
A lot.
I think we all are involved. You know, that's just part of it. You got to be involved in it. I think in the state, to its credit, is doing things to help us out, like what Launch Tennessee's doing. You know, they're helping us make those connections outside of Tennessee. It's always about building the network, right? I mean,
Yeah, we had an event last week in Murfreesboro, just south of Nashville. That was an agricultural event. Had folks coming in from St. Louis, from all over, to kind of look at ag deals in Tennessee. And that should be our sweet spot.
Right.
And so we're starting to see both strategics and other VCs coming to say, maybe you've got something here we haven't seen anyplace else, certainly not in Boston or the Valley.
Right. Have you, when you think about the industries where everyone's investing right now, a lot of VCs like to talk about how they're going orthogonally, how they're going someplace different, and very few of them do, because it's a herd mentality and it's all, everyone follows everybody else. What are the industries that you think are coming up right now that represent real opportunities for entrepreneurs coming out of Tennessee? We'll take that down the road, and then I've got one more question, and then everyone can go drink. How about that? That sound good? How y'all feel about that? All right, there we go. There we are.
There you go.
There we are.
We're the last thing between them and the bar.
I know, and I'm the last thing between them and y'all, so
Yeah,
I'm in
there you
a
go.
terrible position.
well, I would say just from in Chattanooga, what we're seeing is it's the service model that's doing both services for business to consumer and business to business. We've got a lot of companies getting traction in that area, and then also, you know, you'd think that this would eventually end, but there's still companies that are finding new and unique ways to sell you something that you didn't know you wanted, and that seems to continue to just attract capital and attention.
Yeah.
For me, I'd be focused on big data, and specifically.
That's everyone's focused on big
Yeah,
data.
well, for a very good reason. $16 billion of acquisitions in the last 2 years, $8 billion of that by IBM alone. That's a very fertile field that ain't going anywhere, and it's growing 40% annually. So, hell yes, big data. And by the way, there's a lot of dumb companies out there that will write huge checks for stupid shit that they'll end up breaking. So, I mean, why not play the game?
Right.
And then in my case in particular, I think you know, the music business, although you say that and everybody runs screaming because everybody's, you know, bought a bright shiny ball that turned out to be wrong, there are some core pieces of that business that are ripe for real change. And it ain't, please, if you have a music discovery service, stop and do something else. We don't need another one. But there are pieces and parts of that industry that are really ripe. And so I think those are my two.
I'll give you two, and at the risk of jumping on Mark's back here, big data.
Oh.
It has to be there. Boom. We're seeing it in healthcare. We're seeing it in a lot of these companies that maybe they're experts at what they do, but they had no idea how to gather, analyze, massage, and sort the data to give them the answer they want.
Right.
And they want experts to help them do that.
Right.
Yep.
It's fairly easy for somebody who knows how to handle that marketplace to go assist there. That's one. The second, I think, is agriculture. I think you're going to see agriculture launch way outside of biodiesel. They're going to look at specialty chemicals. They're going to look at ways to boost crop growth. They're going to look at unusual crops. They're going to look at medicinals. It's something that hasn't been touched a lot, and I think certainly in this area there's a lot of room for exploitation.
I mean, there are two companies out of Cambridge that I know of who just got funding for research around the biome, and using the biome to increase crop yields.
Right.
That was last week, too.
Wow.
So, there's something there. And you, sir, let's wrap it up.
You might be able to guess the first one I'm going to say.
Wait. Small data.
A little bigger.
Damn.
It's almost gotten cliche. And when we're meeting with a startup company, and they're taking us through, here's our revenue model. We get a piece from an implementation. We have a recurring monthly piece. And by the way, we're going to build this mountain of data, and it's valuable, and we're going to do something with it. But they have no idea what they're going to do with it. So I think there actually is a market for the people who know what to do.
Well, the thing in that is specialization, right? It has to be someone who has a deep expertise in some particular area where they can build a big data application that can apply to the rest of the industry.
Yeah.
It's not going to be like, we're crunching big numbers. It's we are actually providing this big data service for X, Y,
Providing
or Z.
context.
Yeah, there has to be a business around it.
Right.
I guess the only other one I'd say, specifically to Chattanooga, so that's where I spend a lot of my time. They did the Gig Tank, which is their summer accelerator program, and one of the tracks this summer was 3D printing, which you see from Local Motors. Pretty interesting industry, really early, pretty nascent, and actually had quite a few thought leaders from the space come to Chattanooga because there's not really many other places where there's specific focus on 3D printing. And I don't think we're going to be the place where people are going to come build the 3D printers.
Right.
And that's more capital intensive than we
I'll
can probably do.
throw one more in the bucket. Weed.
I
Marijuana
like it.
legalization is coming, and there is a shit ton of money to be made in it.
Yeah, I like it. I'll throw another one in the bucket because y'all haven't talked about it. Maybe it's not around here, but Bitcoin is actually going to be a very interesting area. I've got a lot of things I can say about Bitcoin, but
Let's hear a couple, because I think that's bullshit.
Really, you think it's bullshit?
Yeah.
Because I think that the blockchain. It's again, it depends on how you define it. If you're talking about Bitcoin as a currency, no, I don't.
Okay,
believe
well,
that.
then now talk.
So what if you did Bitcoin and weed together? Could there be something
Well,
there?
you need actually, you need Bitcoin
Well,
and weed because the banks won't take the money.
But they will when it's decrimmed. It's gonna. There's just too many people with their hand in the air going, "I want some of that revenue."
And now we digress. I'm going to bring it back for one more question that we're going to get. We can talk about weed later.
We'll talk about it later.
So the last question is, and it's trite, but I have to ask it. If you were to give one piece of advice to the entrepreneurs in this room who would like to come and pitch y'all about something, what would it be? What would you tell them? Don't.
Well, show me, don't tell me.
Yeah.
Bring some track record, bring something. It doesn't have to be revenue, but show me something that you've accomplished. If you're just coming in and telling me, that's not usually enough.
I'd say make sure you have a real value story. Make sure that you've got a real business, not just a fake business. We have a lot of people walking the door that are selling us, we can do this and we can do this and we can do this. It's funny, I was telling David earlier that I heard the CEO of Chick-fil-A on Monday, and he said, we have made a multi-billion-dollar business of selling a chicken sandwich with 2 pickles and a buttered bun. And the key is that's what people want. So if you're going to come in, don't tell us about something real funky and flaky. Tell us about what people want, and we'll have an interest.
I love Chick-fil-A. I would say entrepreneurship is the new rock and roll, and there's a lot of wantrepreneurs. I think you better make damn sure you're really an entrepreneur, and that you don't just like to dress up in a suit and talk about being one, right? Or not, in my case. I just think there is an influx of people who think this is really cool, and they don't really understand what it takes, and they don't understand how hard it is. And we only have so much time. There's a finite amount of time, so please be sure you're actually prepared to do what it takes, because it's not easy.
And I actually got this question Monday at a panel I was working on, and the thing is, if you're going to come in, know your market, and your market, you'd be shocked at how many people still come in and say, well, everyone in the world who owns an iPhone is my market.
Right. That's right.
Well, no, it's not.
And if I could just get 1% of that.
Right, if I could just get 1% of it. Right. So that's a pet peeve. I hate to see that.
I want to return to the building bridges for one point out to the valley and out to other investment hubs. And this is sort of a pitch, and then I'll end it. The CrunchBase data set that we have is an entrepreneur's best friend. One, for getting your company noticed by VCs because they look at it every day. And two, because it has every other company that's been funded in the Valley and in New York in that data set, and it's free. So if you're doing research around potential competitors, if you want to surface your own business, use CrunchBase because it's much cheaper than everything else that's on the market, and everyone goes there,
That's right.
at least for 1 point. So I should have made that pitch earlier. I'm making it now. It's the end of the day. Not everyone's here. They lost out. And with that, I think I'll end it and let y'all go drink and let y'all go drink. But thank you so much for the time. I appreciate it. You can find these guys outside.
Thank you, John. Lots of